Hello, New Zealand. Welcome to Straight Talk. Merry Christmas, our final episode for the year. And in this episode, the latest political poll is out. Who's heading into the New Year break in the strongest position? And I might just make a prediction about a possible high-profile resignation over the summer. You can hold me to that one. Should the government fund obesity treatment? Should the government fund Maori media if they're already funding the likes of Radio New Zealand and New Zealand On Air? Is it a good idea or a great idea to cap rates? That's the only two options, good or great. Is having children too expensive now, or is it our lifestyle choices that have created the problem? And if we get time, we'll ask the panelists whether they're happy to be called pakeha. Although meeting the panel, they might not all be able to answer that one, so let's meet them without further ado. Nathan, yeah, we might miss that last question for you, but anyway, you're in Auckland. How are you?
I'm good. And look, Bob, I've been called the brown face of white supremacy, so I think I can answer it.
Okay, well, remember that one. We'll ask if you've got hurty feelings because of that one. To your left, but not on the left, is Bruce Logan in Christchurch. I hear it's been a bit cooler down there, Bruce.
Yeah, a bit cooler than yesterday. Yeah, it was 20-something, but it was cooler.
Okay, that global warming thing's all made up then by the sound of it. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Only
happens in Auckland, that global warming.
Yeah, okay. It's selective. Rodney Hyde in the beautiful, beautiful Queenstown area. How are you?
I couldn't be better.
Mm.
I'm having my first Christmas as a Christian, so how good can that be?
Special celebration, fantastic. And well, we might come back to that one. And in the Hawke's Bay, Ashley Church, how are you?
I'm good. I didn't mention to you before we kicked off, Bob, but I had a bit of an accident yesterday, and I did myself an injury, actually, but knocked myself out. That's not the mark of the beast. It's a yeah, no, I know. So I think the fact that I've actually turned up today is quite admirable. To be fair.
Did you go out to cold, Ashley?
I did. I have no idea how I did it. I was inside. I'd done just some work outside. Came in. Must have done something. Must have hit something. Went down, whacked my head, and there you go. So.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
well, actually,
bit of sympathy.
Well, that segues perfectly into the video of the day that I picked. It was a late choice, actually, and so you'll relate to this. Remember Biden? He finally reappeared. He was doing a high-profile speech at the International LGBTQ plus Leaders Conference on Friday night. And as he accepted the award for advancing LGBTQ plus rights and for running the most inclusive administration in US history, he struggled with the name of the country. Have a watch. I just thought, Ashley, you'll be able to relate to this.
We just have to get up.
Well,
as long as we keep the faith, summon hope, and get back up and remember who in the hell we are. We're the United States of America. That's who we are. We're the U.S. And there's nothing. I mean...
Don't you miss that? The United States of the America got it. So, Ashley, you're not doing too badly. And Bruce, I mean, you are doing really, really well because you're actually older than Biden, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
And you've just... Yeah, go on.
I'm following Rodney, and this is my first Christmas being 87.
That is impressive. And, of course, you've just released a new book, which is a New York, I was going to say New York Times bestseller, a Ekatahuna bestseller.
I wish it were.
Just remind us of the name of the book so that people can...
Oh, it's Pilgrim, Diversity, Inclusion, and a Civil Religion in New Zealand. And you can
Very
get
good
it,
book.
And you can get it by emailing me on my email, which Bob will give you at the end of the thing.
Okay. Bruce A. Logan at Gmail, I think it is, isn't it? Gmail.com.
That's right.
Bruce A. Logan, the letter A. Bruce A. Logan at gmail.com. And Rodney has read it, highly recommends it. Be a great Christmas gift to give to thinkers.
I can't recommend the book highly enough. Of course, I haven't had the pleasure of reading Ashley's one that's due to come out. But if you want to understand New Zealand and the state we're in, that's the book to read. I wish I'd read it years and years and years ago. The beautiful, wonderful book.
The image of the day is actually a poll that was done by Pew Research. It was Barna Research. in the US, which tends to do stuff around church and spiritual elements. And they basically asked people what was the effect of Charlie Kirk's assassination on them, and have they taken any action? Now, the grey represents taking no action, red means spiritual action, yellow is political action, and green at the top is both spiritual and political. So about 71%, it didn't have an effect on them, but that means 29%, that's almost 1 in 3, took some form of action in response, either spiritual or political or both. But note the biggest amount of spiritual action is in the second and third column, which is your younger generation, your Gen Z and your millennial. And then the other one is out the far right, which is practicing Christians. So it's impacted the younger generations and Christians. So just very interesting. I've actually done a McBlog on it, which will be up either tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, just digging into those figures further. So that is very interesting. All right, let's get straight into it. And there is a political poll that has just come out, and it's very good news for the right. Nationals had a 2% jump. Now, Labor's had a 3% jump, but the thing is that they've taken all the votes off Greens, which have plummeted 4%. Te Pāti Maori are too busy fighting, and so they're down 2%. So when you look at seats in Parliament, basically, if there was an election, Luxon's safe, the coalition's safe, and the right are going to be having a nice party over the weekend. Preferred Prime Minister. Look at that. Despite the fact that they were going to roll Chris Luxon, he's gone up 2%. And Chris Bishop is there on 2%. But then again, Erica Stanford and Nicola Willis are on 1%. So that's margin of error. One more graph I had. Oh, that button's not working. Oh, no, this one, sorry. Should the current Te Pāti Māori co-leaders remain in their roles? Almost half said no. When they broke it down to Te Pāti Māori supporters, they too felt that Te Pāti Māori leaders should go. Anyway, so let's just get your response to that. And, you know, can the right relax, or is this just, I mean, what's going on here? Nathan, do you want to kick us off here? What's going on here?
I definitely don't think they should relax. I think combining the positive poll with what I saw recently, some of the larger banks saying there'll be economic turnaround in 2026, they should put their foot down while they can and get as far ahead as possible, because leaving any room, you know, what I say, a little slumber, poverty pounces. So having a little bit of room or a little bit of comfort won't do them any favors. They should just press ahead.
Okay, interesting you raise that about economics, because actually if you dig into the data, and I would suspect that this will be the big story tomorrow, they sort of haven't reported it, but we've found it, is that when they asked whether you're optimistic or pessimistic about the economy, optimism has gone up 6% to 42%. Pessimism has gone down 9 points to 30%. So 42 to 30, and that's a 15% change. So if that continues and people feel good about the economy, it's going to be home and hose for the coalition government, isn't it?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, if you remember the Ipsos poll that came out a little while back, and it talked about the issue for voters being cost of living. So, which dovetails exactly into this, because what we've seen over the last 3 or 4 months, in addition to the various measures that the government's taken, we've seen mortgage interest rates continuing to come down. And there's been this, and because people haven't felt that immediately, because a lot of them have been on fixed rates, which means they've got to wait 3-6 months, you know, sometimes a year before they can actually take advantage. We're now seeing the result of that starting to flick through, and I would expect that will continue into 2026, and that will start to feed through into the economy. So, you know, literally thank God, because I was quite concerned middle of the way through this year at the way things were looking, but this is where things should be sitting, and long that continue.
Okay, Bruce, why do you think, I mean, Greens Te Pāti Māori, are they just so busy infighting and they're just so weird? Have people finally realised that? Or
Well, I think the obvious answer is well, obvious. They not saying anything that's coherent, and they are losing the votes on 2 counts. I think obviously on the failure to Te Pāti Māori is all over the place. The Greens are incoherent, and as well as that, there is a feeling in the culture that the economy is improving, and that's been sensed, I think, that even before the poll was taken, and that's contributed, I think, to the rise in Nationals polling. It just seemed to be the 2 obvious factors. contribute towards what the change in the polls. Let's hope, as Nathan says, let's hope they keep putting their foot down. I think.
Okay, Rodney, I really want to ask you this one because I thought what was most significant, I mean, obviously the results were a shocker for the Greens. That's a big drop. That's outside the margin of error. So something's going on there. And I just want to show you Chloe's response because I think the Greens are in trouble. I want to make a prediction after we watch this, but she basically blames the voter. And I'm interested to ask you, Rodney, whether it's good for a politician to blame voters rather than their own performance. This is what she said to One News.
Despite a massive 4-point drop, the Greens aren't glum, instead saying voters are.
They're exhausted. They're over it. This government doesn't listen to them, so why would they engage with politics right now?
Are they over the Greens?
I think, again, one poll. We've bounced up and down. Well, we've bounced up and down.
Between Labour's recent policy spray and Te Pāti Māori ructions, the Greens are struggling for attention.
We are focused on addressing the material, basic needs of New Zealanders, and maybe that stuff isn't sexy. I don't know.
What do you reckon, Rodney?
Very poor. She's just got to say, we're working harder, we've got good policy, and we're going to be rolling it out next year. Wait and see.
Yep.
You never blame the voters.
Yep.
Here's my assessment, and this is from the grizzled old politician Richard Prebble, and he always said, ignore the good polls and pay very close attention to the bad ones.
Good advice.
Because your mentality as a politician is to take great heart when you get a good poll and then explain away a bad one. And you should be doing the exact opposite. The other key thing is what's going to decide this next election is what decides every election, is those people that don't know how they're going to vote yet. And they can vote Labour 1 year and National the next election. They could vote Greens or they could vote New Zealand First. These are the crucial voters. People like us, we know who are going to vote every election. So we're not the ones that determine the result. Now, the ones that haven't made their mind up or don't
10%.
make their mind up very quickly, they're not really following politics day to day like we are. And when you get rung, what are they going to vote for, to be just sort of top of mind. What's key then, when you're a year out or so from an election, is whether the country is on the right direction or the wrong direction. If voters think it's on the right direction, i.e. they think the economy is getting better, they're going to return the government. If they think it's on the wrong direction, things are going to get worse, they're going to dump it. That's what's going to determine those voters who aren't switched into party politics. So I think it's very good news for the centre-right, and they should ignore it and double down, work harder.
Okay, here's my prediction. Feel free to challenge it if any of you do, but when I watch that interview and I watch having just watched Chloe's interviews over the last couple of months, I am predicting that possibly there's going to be a retirement over January from her. Does anybody think that I'm nuts?
Well, they're two separate questions. Do we think you're nuts, and is there going to be a retirement?
Of course you're nuts.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks, Ashley. Okay, well, let's just do the first part of the question.
Yeah. I had not even conceived of that idea, so I'd have to probably percolate on it for a while. But look, it's not outside the bounds of reason. She's driven by her ego, and this will hit her ego.
Yep. Okay. You don't think I'm nuts, do you, Nathan?
For you, Bob.
Oh yeah, Rodney.
Mark Mitchell will go.
You think there's a lot of cloud over all this, and
yes,
Costa's going to take him down?
I do.
As a minister or as an MP?
As a minister.
Yeah.
He could be reallocated to another portfolio, but he's made a total hash of this. He might be absolutely telling the truth, but it's extremely untidy. And they've got of all the things you've got to run well, it's the police. And he's making a pig's ear of it, I'm afraid. Rightly or wrongly. And if Luxon's got brains, he needs to cauterise it and bring in a new minister.
Okay. Do you want to back me up, Nathan? Do you want to, stand up for me and defend
don't
my
know, it's-
nothingness?
I don't know how smart of a decision it is to resign a job when you've only got one previous work experience on your CV, So,
No,
I don't know.
no. Chloe would get a job at the UN tomorrow
Yeah.
if she resigned, or
Yeah.
at the
Could be a
Climate
paid protester.
Commission. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm sure George Soros would happily employ Chloe to do some paid protesting around the
Yeah.
place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or go and work for that petition group. What's it called? They do all the left-wing petitions online and harvest people's emails.
Yeah,
No,
but I think we're giving her credit here to say that she would take this and accurately self-reflect, which is a huge compliment to what we have witnessed from her previously. So I don't know, be interesting. I haven't thought about it.
Okay, let's just check the comments before we go on. And Sue, one of our panelists, says Chloe is looking tired and fed up. It must be miserable being a leftist. Daryl says, what would a national coalition second term look like? Would Luxon be more courageous at all instead of leaving the heavy lifting to Winston? Kevin says, regarding Charlie Kirk, following Charlie Kirk's death, I've made an effort to introduce myself to people who I know are not like me, which included a lefty politician. And Kiwi Toffee wants another advert for the book, which is entitled, Bruce, Pilgrim,
Multiculturalism, Diversity and Civil Religion in New Zealand.
and it's available on Amazon, isn't it?
It is available on Amazon and other places as well, but it's
Okay.
cheaper for me.
Okay, when we do a shot where I'm not in the scene, I might go and grab a copy off the shelf so that I can show everybody. Anyway, let's continue. Our second topic is about the fact that a weight loss specialist says that reframing obesity as a disease is important, and more than 18,000 New Zealanders have been prescribed this new weight loss drug, Wegovy. Is that how you say it? In the last 3 months. It's unfunded by Pharmac, so Wegovy costs patients up to $600 a month. That's $150 a week. And Starship Children's Hospital pediatric endocrinologist Dr. Jeffries says drugs like Wegovy could be life-changing for those with, for example, diabetes. So, simple question for the panel: should the government fund this drug, given that it's going to have potential health cost savings in the future if the obesity sticks around? Or is this all back to personal responsibility and the state shouldn't be involved? Ashley, what do you reckon?
Well, firstly, pretty dangerous, to be fair, to ask me a question about the pharmaceutical or health values, and that's why Pharmac exists, to make these sorts of decisions. So I can only opine on this based on what little I've read on it. But if the claims are true, and if this thing actually does, if it does address obesity, we know that obesity drives heart disease. We know that obesity has an impact on cancer, has an impact on diabetes, even amputations. If it does have those impacts, then it would suggest to me that there is probably some case for at least looking a little bit harder at an ongoing funding program. But if you're going to do that, you would defer to Pharmac, because that's the agency we're set up for that purpose. So if it has the therapeutic values it's supposed to have, Pharmac should be funding it. If it doesn't, should probably ignore it. But
does it make sense that the government gets involved, that if someone is overweight, that they've got an eating problem, that there's a drug that can help deal with the mental attraction?
Yes, it does. But let me put what I just said in another way. I mean, so we've come into the 20th and 21st century, and we are now able to cure all manner of ills that we weren't able to. Yeah. So there are things that even 20 years ago we couldn't fix. So now it's no longer a health argument; it's an economic argument. And the economic argument is, given that you've got this smorgasbord of things that you can provide to your population and a limited amount that you can put to vote health, which of those things do you actually fund? And so it comes down at the end of the day to an informed decision by people who are experts in these things, I guess. I'm not trying to defer away from the decision, but I just think it's really, if we just said, look, should we fund things that fix people, you'd have to have an unlimited budget for health.
Okay, Nancy Margaret has just messaged, and I just want to show you this, better that she asks it so she gets in trouble, not me. Surely it's cheaper to eat less, so therefore the money you save on not having the food that you'd normally eat pays for the weight loss drug.
That's a different argument. Argument.
Rodney, what do you reckon?
I'm an expert on being fat and dieting. Definitely not. We should have learned a lot these past few years about pharmaceutical companies. And of course, this is a multi-billion-dollar drug to them. And I wouldn't mind betting $1 that in 5 to 10 years' time, we'll discover that there are huge secondary effects or bad consequences to taking this drug.
Yeah.
I find it very hard to believe that taking a pill like this doesn't come with out consequences. And we're very good at having experts pop up in the news and say puberty blockers, oh yeah, just take them, they'll be reversible, yada 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 yada. Yeah, just take this, you don't need to worry, you'll be slim in a month, and it certainly does seem to have that effect. But I find it hard to believe that it doesn't have a negative consequence.
Very wise.
Okay, I'm just looking.
And bugger the pharmaceutical industries, excuse my French. I think these guys have absolutely ripped us off for years and years and years through our thinking, oh, this will be good for society, we'll fund this, we'll subsidize this. They have made billions and billions of dollars. And we now know over and over and over again, they've falsified the data. There's no industry that's been more fined or been more, negligent in terms of caring for our health. So I got no time for them.
Okay. I'm looking at the Wegovy site, and they say that some of the sites, so, you go to the manufacturer and they tell you all the nice things. So it's only vomiting, abdomen pain, tiredness, dizziness, belching, gas. Gee, I'm not even taking the drug. Stomach flu, heartburn, runny nose. What was that, Nathan? But then again, I looked at drugs.com and they said, side effects, increased risk of thyroid cancer, hypoglycemia, allergic reactions, and kidney damage. So is he onto something, Bruce? Do you think this is more about taking away personal responsibility?
Yes, it is. It is about taking away personal responsibility. I mean, what Ashley and Rodney say, I agree with. But there's one point I would like to make, and it's associated with that. Unless there are good, obvious reasons, and there are some, undoubtedly there are many, to take drugs to reduce your size, generally speaking, taking drugs to change one's behaviour is not a good idea. Using a drug to change behaviour is in danger of being dehumanising. It undermines character development, and it weakens the ability to respond to the difference between right and wrong, because the drug is fudging the issues of what it means to be responsible. And some might argue, and I would, that the inability to confidently distinguish between right and wrong is characteristic of our time, and the non-committal to inappropriate seems to replace both. And taking a drug isn't going to be any help. We're told that Wegovy alters the brain pathways that drives obesity. But what actually does that mean? It's one of those descriptions that obscures rather than educates, it seems to me. It's difficult to know what it's actually being said. Now, I don't want to have my brainwaves permanently altered by a drug. It sounds like something out of Huxley's Brave New World. Now, I'm more than willing to be enlightened, but I'm not convinced. Of course, not everyone has the same metabolism. Some people put on weight more easily than others. Nevertheless, most people who are obese overeat. For most of us, being overweight or obese is a self-inflicted first world condition. I don't think it's a problem in Somalia. So I think we should take very serious notice that drug taking undermines, I think, our important humanity. So we should need to get a grip and don't rely on drugs to intrude on our decision-making as a responsible citizen. Don't undermine the virtue of self-discipline even. And don't become one of those mental health obsessed snowflakes that it might encourage.
Okay, I'm a bit offended that you've said nasty things about Somalians, because they're very nice and they don't do any welfare fraud in Minnesota of $1 billion or anything like that. The media said it's just a little bit of...
They're eating the ducks, they're eating the geese.
All right. Look, there must be a place for some medication. I mean, there's people with high blood pressure who are on certain medication. There's menopause medication, for example? I won't ask you about that, Nathan, but is there a place where you know that a drug could prevent further sickness down the track if the person maintains the state that they're in?
Sure, if you know for sure, but I think Rodney absolutely nailed it. I know Ozempic was very popular a year or so ago, and a lot of celebrities were pumping that in the media. Huge adverse health effects, uncontrollable diarrhea, just to paint a really beautiful picture for you, stomach ulcers, all sorts of conditions coming off the back of that. I just agree with everything that the panelists have said tonight, where, yeah, self-discipline, self-control, which is a fruit of the spirit, shouldn't be undervalued as an important necessity that we protect in terms of the human experience. We can't drug our way to happiness, even though some people try. So yeah, I wouldn't be in favour of the government wasting more money on these sorts of initiatives.
Okay, Ashley, is it a disease though? I mean, can it become to the point where it does consume you and does become a disease? So therefore it does deserve some medication.
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon. So this tendency to take what were once, as Nathan quite rightly indicated, what were once issues around self-control and redefine them as diseases over the last 50-odd years has been, in my view, a move toward basically removing the responsibility on the individual for themselves and tried to transfer it to the state. And that's a phenomenon we've seen not just in healthcare, but across a whole range of different things that happen in society. So it's just part of that whole process, as far as I'm concerned. I agree with Nathan. It's at the end of the day, it comes down to people's ability to control their own impulses.
Okay, but if we say that, I mean, Rodney, if we say that undereating can be a disease, in other words, anorexia nervosa, that can be a disease. If undereating can be a disease, why can't overeating also be one?
Well, you can define anything you like as a disease.
Yeah.
People are mentally unwell that aren't eating properly, both sides, but we've seen this. We have a long history of prescribing antidepressants in the same way. And the idea is that there's some chemical imbalance in your brain and that you'll take a pill and you'll come right. This is an absurdity. And of course, now we're learning all the dreadful consequences of these drugs. These antidepressant drugs have had a dramatic impact. And New Zealand, I think, has got the second highest intake in the world. We're heavily overdrugged here in New Zealand. We've got the highest level of taking puberty blockers. My goodness, the last thing we want to be doing is drugging us up more. That said, I have a huge sympathy for people that struggle with their weight. I'm one of them. And it means working very hard on your character and asking for the help of our Lord.
Okay. Let's just check a couple of comments before we move on to another funding issue. Kevin says obesity is a disease that's probably associated with self-esteem, needs to be treated with advice, if not pills. And Don, my good mate Don up north, says no quick fix, try exercise, sensible diet, no KFC, Bob. Okay, now you're just being completely unreasonable. All right, let's move on. Parliament has been warned of a imminent catastrophe for the Maori media sector. Its funding agency claiming the government is about to slash the budget for Maori media by 25%. Te Kaurere has faced a 64% funding cut. Apparently Radio Waiatea, is that how you say it? The largest Māori radio. A whole lot of them have been laid off. The funding has gone from 66 million down to 50 million. So they're still getting 50 million. And in the 2025 budget, Radio New Zealand had its budget cut as well. Now, let me just show you this clip because there's a little bit of a disagreement within the funding, bit of an awkward moment. Have a watch.
It was time-stamped, so we knew to a certain degree
so this is the head of Maori media.
For 26-27, that we'll no longer have that funding. So we'll go from 66 million to 50. 25% is a lot to lose. 25% less support to the industry, to Māori language. So I would hope that they take what we said to heart and help us with securing that funding.
Greg Fleming, a National MP, said that was a very convincing argument. It's incredibly rare for a government backbencher to disagree with the minister. What did you make of that?
I loved it. I thought, well, what we're saying today and our our continued support of the industry and everything that industry is doing for te reo Māori is important to all. And that's the purpose of Te Mangai Pāho kia mahorahora te reo.
Okay, so let's leave it there. So basically you've got a national backbencher who said actually persuasive argument, Māori media should be funded, but then you've got the budget being cut on them. But then again, it's correct to say, well, we are funding Radio New Zealand and we are funding New Zealand on air. So therefore, if you don't want funding for Māori media, are you just racist? So Nathan, would you like to respond to that claim?
I don't think the government should fund any media. Media is a commodity that people invest in through viewership and paying for subscriptions. I don't see why the government has to pay to keep these guys in business. So it's nothing to do with Māori in my view. I think they should cut funding to all media. I don't think state-funded media should be a thing. It flies directly in the face of what the media should be, which in the fourth estate would be external to the government holding power to account. I think government-funded media is the worst thing that's happened to journalism. I don't think that we should be pandering to tiny minorities. I've noticed that a lot of Māori media now has English captions. For a long time watching Māori media, they were super elitist. They didn't want you to watch what they were talking about. They didn't want you to be able to engage unless you could speak the reo. And now they're realizing that there's no viewership in that. So they're putting English captions on everything. So they've dug their own grave here. Ultimately, I don't think the government should fund them. And in regards to Greg, good on him for standing up for them, but Greg is notorious for being a white savior when it comes to these sorts of issues. So he should probably just relax.
Okay. Ashley, what do you reckon?
Oh, Nathan's just stolen my thunder. There is no place in the 21st century for government to be funding media in any form other than the mechanism that's used or a similar mechanism that's used to the one that we use for New Zealand on air. So I've got no problem with funding for content to private operators. There is absolutely no place for government funding of Radio New Zealand, the concert station, TVNZ, although in fairness to TVNZ, they do self-sustain on their own work. So either you get but if we're going to have state-owned media for the pretentious snobs that listen to the concert station rather than paying for it themselves, then we should be funding it for multimedia as well. But we shouldn't have it for any of them. It should be gone. There is simply no place for government funding of broadcasting in any form, in my view.
I just can't believe that we are paying for Concert FM when there's Spotify.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
It's unbelievable. But anyway,
Yeah,
they got their new studios in the TVNZ building in Auckland, which they're not moving into for 6 months. So they're going to pay all the rent while they're still boxing everything up, apparently. Seems like shambles. Bruce, I know do you listen to Concert FM, Bruce?
Well, yes, I do.
Ashley.
When I said pretentious snobs, Bruce.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, that puts me in the category of pretentious snob. But I understand the argument that you're making, but nevertheless, I still enjoy concert. In fact, it's the only channel or station or whatever they're called these days that my wife listens to. I enjoy it in the car. Otherwise, I'm interrupted all the time by sheer banality of the national radio or confusing advertising on ZB. So that's it's the only peace and quiet that I can have when I'm sitting in the car listening.
Have you got Spotify, Bruce?
Pardon?
Have you got Spotify?
No. Mary has, though.
Oh, well, there you go. What do you need Concert FM for? Why am I having to pay for you to listen to Concert FM as what was the label, Ashley?
Pretentious snobs.
As a pretentious snob, when you could be just listening to your wife's Spotify account.
Well, oldies like us don't know what Spotify is.
Well, that's a compliment for Mary.
Yeah. Be cheaper to send people around the country to train you how to use it.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be quite happy with that. They come and help with my computer as well.
Yeah.
Okay, just give me a big shot, Gordy. I just want to show the book here. Here we are. Here's Bruce's book. Pilgrim. So you can get that on Amazon or you can email brucealogan@gmail.com. He said I'll get a better Christmas present this year if we sell a few more books. So there we go. There's your ad, Bruce. Rodney, I know that... A couple more points about media. Yep. Government-financed media will always collapse into propaganda. It has to. I don't see how it can avoid that.
Yeah, totally.
And if the Maori media require financing, then let the Maori economy that we keep hearing about it finance it, not the taxpayer. And then apart from anything else, that's likely to be more efficient. So I think that well, it's been all said. I don't add to it. I could talk about social justice theory and all that kind of stuff, but it would take too long and it would be too boring.
Okay.
You're all a bunch of softies. You're all a bunch of softies.
Yeah, go on, Rodney. Put us straight.
Two things. One is, of course, we shouldn't be funding media at all in this day and age. Should never have done it in any age. Having said that, even if you're funding the media, you shouldn't be funding Maori media. That is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. Imagine if Ashley and I set up White Man's Radio. We got White Man's Radio running and we speak in the language that most of the population can't hear. Okay, I'd have no problem with that. But then the government is going to fund White Man's Radio. It's terrible. It gets worse though, because Radio Waitea, I only found this out, it's basically run by John Tamahiri, the president of the Maori Party, and Willie Jackson, who's a front bench Labour MP. We're funding their jolly propaganda. They get to decide who goes on air. Oh my goodness. It is totally racist. Now, I can understand funding Maori language. I wouldn't have a problem with that. You could do it on concert radio, you could not concert radio, national radio, and you could fund lessons in te reo, you could have te reo programs. I wouldn't let them cover politics though, because that would become quickly propaganda. No problem funding te reo. But to fund Maori radio and have Maori seats and Maori funding and a Maori party, it's disgusting. We've got to get rid of that. Just out of common decency.
Okay, Rodney, I just need to challenge you on part of that. Yeah, you absolutely did. Wonderful. Thank you. I just want to challenge you on the fact that the government also funds the National Pacific Radio Trust, which runs New FM and 531 PI. So we're funding Nathan's stations as well.
But I like those ones. They're all right.
Yeah. So we're funding Maori, we're funding English, Radio New Zealand, we're funding Pacific, and we're also funding New Zealand on air, which Ashley doesn't mind, which I am absolutely surprised at, Ashley, that you support funding through New Zealand on air. Why?
Me too.
Because New Zealand on
You're
air
going soft.
It's drama. It's designed for drama. It's designed to take New Zealand content to be able to be shown in other countries around the world. I don't have an issue
like
with
Shortland Street.
Well, no, that's not a good example, but there are examples of drama that we do do.
Give us a good example, Ashley.
The Almighty Johnsons a few years ago, stunning television, brilliant stuff, and it made its way to the States. The Flight of the Conchords. There's been some great stuff come out of this country, and I haven't got a problem with that because that stuff wouldn't commercially survive otherwise. So, but yeah, not radio programs and not TV stations.
Do we fund Indian radio and Chinese radio that we have?
No, it's funded by those ethnicities themselves, I think.
Oh, I bet they get some government funding.
Don't know. Honestly, don't know. Yeah.
I will check that while we're doing that. I suspect they'll be getting New Zealand on air funding, won't they? Anyway, okay, we'll do some homework on that. Anyway, let's talk about rates. The government has announced that basically councils are going to have to cap their rates at 4%. It doesn't kick in for a couple of years. What was I going to show you just before I ask you about this? There we are. The media have sort of said it's quite a clever little political thing because, everybody wants their costs down and they're sick of their rates going up. Here's some examples of where ratepayers have, spent stuff. And this is actually from a website by, what's the website called? It's called capratesnow.nz. So they sort of did a petition. So good on them for lobbying. And this was the 3-year average. So the inflation rate is that yellow line, actual inflation 4%. And the council average up to 10.4. But look at if you're on the West Coast, Wellington, Taranaki, Queen, Rodney, 14%. Have you been opposing these 14% hike in rates? I mean, What I can't understand is you've got all these extra people piling into Queenstown, so you've got much more ratepayers, and yet everybody's still having to pay more. So there's more ratepayers paying more. Council's doing fantastic, aren't they, Rondi?
Capping the rates is a fantastic idea. Just force them to allocate within their budget. I'd actually like them to sit down with a blank piece of paper and come up with what they'd like local government to do, and actually tell them to do that rather than all the other things that they like to do, like implement the UN sustainability goals. Just drop all that stuff. But why stop with councils having rate caps? Why don't we cap government spending as well? Central government spending should be capped.
That would be.
That's all you needed to say. It's brilliant.
That's excellent. I've got so many great. I've got 8:34. I've got Ashley calling Bruce a what was it? A
pretentious knob.
Pretentious snob.
Yeah.
No,
knob.
Oh, was it pretentious? It wasn't pretentious knob.
Yeah.
Snob's a bad definition of pretentious.
And at 8:30, what was it? 8:47, we had Rodney come up with the best idea that he's ever come up with in his life.
Yep.
And that's to cap tax. Actually, did you float that when you're in politics, Rodney? When you're in Parliament, did you? I think you did, didn't you?
Every year.
Yeah, that's what the ACT Party did. Fiscal conservatives. Yeah, not social conservatives, but fiscal conservatives.
I remember causing a great deal of trouble when I just wanted the IRD to send every taxpayer a letter thanking them with an assessment of how much tax they paid that year.
Yeah.
And that caused chaos, because if you actually knew we hide the tax, don't we, with PAYE and GST? Yeah. No one knows unless you're a small business.
Okay. Bruce, you've paid the rates the longest of all of us. Are you glad there's a cap, or do you think that, no, councils should have a little bit of leeway?
Well, initially, I didn't get too excited about this one. I don't think I had the comprehension that Rodney has of it. And anyway, by the way, it's not happening till 2029. That's when the process, which is a long way
Should make it retrospective to 1930.
Bruce would be loaded.
So the councils have got 3 years to get on with their profligacy. So, but as a general principle, I believe that local decision making is better than centralised decision making, and that's one of the reasons I'm not sure at this stage of which side I'm on. A caps rate seems to me has the potential to be bureaucratically inefficient. On the other hand, I expect that council profligacy is endemic. Indecision or not, in my case, a 35% average increase in rates over the last 3 years is pretty hard to defend. I suspect we need to take more interest in our local body elections and realise that bureaucrats waste money at the regional and national levels at both. And that's particularly true when ideologies are being enforced. So I'm not sure that declaring a plague in both houses helps, although I'm tempted to do it, and Rodney certainly has. Other than intensifying our democratic participation, I'm not sure what we can do. We need to understand what candidates believe, I think, particularly at the local level. If we get people in local council who we don't know who they are, and sometimes they're not very sure who they are either, we're going to get increasing rates because there won't be any pressure on to do otherwise, apart from the cap, which might come on in 2029. So something significant's going on. In the meantime, I'm not sure why we have to wait to 2029, seeing a decision could be made now.
Okay, Nathan?
Yeah, I think we should definitely cap them. I pay rates not in Auckland, luckily, but in Dunedin. And I wouldn't be able to point to anything other than a bin that's too small and a bunch of rainbow crossings. And a seesaw that they put in the middle of the road, actually. That
a what?
got hit on straight away. Yeah, in Dunedin, the council built a seesaw in the middle of the main road as an attempt to make a walking, driving shared space. And I think on day 2, a child was hit which was they said it was going to happen straight away. So no, well, I pay Otago regional council rates as well, which is I think they got voted the most inefficient council in the country a few years ago. So I'm all for capping the rates. I don't see much return for what I actually pay.
Okay. Just before we move on, I was just looking at the Ministry for Ethnic Communities, and they have grants that are paid out. So possibly that funds Manukau Indian FM, which is a New Zealand-based 24. There we go.
Before you move on from the rates one,
yeah,
I've got a view on this.
Didn't I ask you?
No.
Oh, sorry about that, Ashley.
There's a really important aspect to this that people forget. You talked earlier on about maybe we should just tell councils what they should actually do. We used to do that. We actually used to do that up until Helen Clark's government in the early 2000s. We basically had prescribed services that governments provided. Clark's government introduced something called power of general competence, and what that did was it allowed councils to go beyond what they had normally spent on to pretty much spending money on anything as long as they could justify it with their local community. So that's the first point. This situation has really only happened over the last 20 odd years. Second one to understand about this that I think that's been missed in this whole debate is it only relates to the portion of your rates that is assessed against the value of your home. Now, most of us think that's the entire amount that we pay. It's actually not. Lots of councils around the country, and in some cases up to 50% of the rates are actually assessed against what's called uniform annual charges. So things like rubbish collection, public libraries and what have you, where they can assess a value on the individual ratepayer as an individual charge. So this only applies to a portion of your rates, a portion that's done on your housing value. So it's a start, but it's not necessarily going to bring rates down by the amount that people think it is. So the answer is what you said at the beginning, Bob. The answer is for government to actually prescribe to councils what their role actually is and force them to stay within that. And that it won't happen overnight, but over a period of time, that will get rates back down to a manageable increase over time.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about raising kids. Nathan, I'm coming to you first because you're right in the thick of this one. A new survey has showed increasing concerns about raising children. According to data from the 2025 American Family Survey, 71% of participants said it's not affordable for most people to raise children. Big increase, 13% increase from last year and 20% increase from 2 years ago. But it's the younger generations, it's the 18 to 44, likely to cite the reason of cost for not having enough children. Although interestingly, when you break it down, they say that it ranks in the top 3 concerns, but only 25% that it was a top concern for themselves. So they're thinking that it's a concern for everybody else, but not necessarily for them. The other interesting thing about the survey is that it wasn't based on, there was no difference between whether families were rich or poor. They were all concerned that it was too costly to raise children. And just before I come to you, Nathan, so this was an interesting graph which actually shows that progressives are more likely to have less children than conservatives, but conservatives are still dropping. US on the left, developed world average on the right. And just the New Zealand fertility rate is going through the floor. We're down to 1.58. That's the latest figure that's just come out. Needs to be 2.2 to replace our population. So that's why we depend on immigrants to boost our population. So, Nathan, is it expensive having kids, and is it a factor, or is it just we're living much more, what was that word, Ashley, pretentious lifestyles? And, with our Spotify account and our Sky account, and it's got nothing to do with the kids. It's just we're a bit too privileged.
Oh, I don't think it's expensive at all, considering you only have to feed them till they're 5 and then they get a Maori government lunch at school, and that gets them through the rest of the week. But
those fairies are fantastic.
I think it's one of the big lies that's being sold to young people, and I saw it amongst my friends. And the first one is that getting married is too expensive. That to have a wedding, you should spend all this money, and so you deter people from getting married because of the cost incurred and the inconvenience of planning a wedding. Then the second one is kids are expensive, which I've got 3 of my own, and honestly, it's all about living within your means. But I don't actually think kids are objectively expensive. I think you can spend as much or as little as you want. They are yours to care for, and I believe that you can do a really good job without being a millionaire. So no, I would disagree with the idea that kids are expensive.
Okay, Bruce, I mean, this is just sort of excuse for climate alarmism, anti-family, pro-woman working, anti-children. I mean, it almost shows in that statistics of, progressive, I call them regressive, or liberals, their fertility rates going through the floor, and it's because they're panicking about all this stuff, aren't they?
Yes. Nathan's right, and he's absolutely right. But this issue, by the way, is, I think, the most important issue we're going to talk about tonight, and it underpins all the others we're talking about and has an impact on all the others. It's complicated, and to do it justice, one would have to try and write a book. But at the risk of oversimplifying, I've had a wee eye thought in my mind that it's about two triangles, a traditional one and a progressive one, threatened by an elephant. Now, let me explain. The traditional triangle has its base at the bottom. Simply put, there are more young people than old people living, and the triangle's like that. Old people at the top, young people at the bottom. The progressive triangle turns that traditional triangle upside down. There are more pensioners and old people and young people to support them because of the kind of factors you've been pointing out, falling birth rates and so on. There are not enough babies to replace those who die. Now, just about every Western country is in this predicament at the moment. Some countries are actually paying mothers to have babies. Dependency increases when you don't have enough babies to replace those who die. Savings diminish, dependency increases, taxes rise, and the bureaucracy increases and increasingly intrudes on our lives. Now, the progressive triangle has emerged because we've failed to accept the role of marriage and the role that marriage and family play in our lives. When did you last hear somebody talking about marriage as the wealth creator and teaching the responsibility of unselfishness? That's the elephant in the room. When did you last hear any argument in favour of the family as the primary creator, preserver and distributor of wealth? We've allowed ourselves, I think, to be seduced by lies, as Nathan was implying. For example, sexual intercourse is not reproduction, it's recreation. That has a huge impact on the way we think about children. Marriage and cohabitation are equivalent. The roles of men and women are interchangeable and not complementary. And consequently, we have the imposition of the two-income family. And then something else we don't talk about very much is there's a widespread hostility towards traditional morality. And for traditional morality, I would tend to read Christian. Progressive ideology, which underpins the what's going on, overwhelms biology and distorts what I call psychological reality, undermining the critical and different roles that mothers and fathers play in developing the children's character. Now, all of these things are being glossed, and the consequences of the glossing and us being seduced by the progressive ideas has the impact of undervaluing and causing us to undervalue children. And the consequences should be obvious to us. And financial pressure, of course, determines to some extent what we think is expensive. But it's the parents' religion and culture that determines what they really think about their children. Now, in a society where both partners must work, it's easier and probably cheaper to have a dog than have children, which is very common, I think. Such is the rewarding anticlimax of the progressive triangle. It turns life into some kind of anticlimax, and it's very disappointing that we just don't see this situation being discussed in the media to any depth.
Yeah, well, with statements like that, Bruce, you're never going to get a job as a lecturer in a New Zealand university with those whack job theories.
No,
I mean, you're toast, man.
Too long.
Very refreshing and summed up in this excellent book, by the way, Pilgrim, available on Amazon. Rodney, can you better that?
No, I can't. I can never better Bruce Logan. He's written the book on these things. But I would just say this. I think if you look across society, and I think the stats back me up, if you want to be rich and succeed, get married young, have lots of children,
Yes.
and stay married. That is actually a recipe for becoming very wealthy. And it's also a recipe for great happiness and joy throughout your life, because you take responsibility and you accept the challenges of life. Getting young married and having children has been the economic motivator for men and women since the dawn of time. And it's long may it continue. We're in an existential threat right now with, across the West, declining birth rates, and yet still you read in the newspaper that somehow overpopulation is a problem. It's quite the reverse.
Yeah.
Can I add to what Rodney said, Bob?
Yeah.
There's one other thing worthwhile saying. If you're a man and you're married, you'll live longer than if you were single. If you get sick, you'll get better quicker, and you'll be wealthier.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty
Absolutely.
radical. Yeah. Ashley, did I ask you or did I leave you out again?
No, I'm quite hurt. So it's the second time.
To be fair, Ashley, you did say he was mad earlier.
Oh,
did
yeah,
say
you
he
said
was
I was
mad.
nuts.
I can forgive him that.
And I'm sticking up for Bruce because you called him, what'd you call him?
Pretentious knob. Don't keep making me say it. Don't
He
I
tried to
just
get
keep
the
forgetting
viral
because I love you saying it.
Anyway, look, Rodney's right. This is an existential threat, but it's not a recent one. So society, certainly Western society, went through this progression over 2 or 3 centuries where it was about there was a whole range of things going on that related to the sharing of the faith and what have you. We got to the 20th century. We had the 2 biggest existential crises of all in the form of the First and the Second World War, and so we had these collective crises that basically brought society together. Pretty much since then, pretty much since the end of World War II, it's all been downhill, which is ironic because society's actually got better in many ways. Healthcare's got better, wealth's exploded, all sorts of things that you would think are good things have happened. But alongside that, we've got more selfish as both individuals and as societies. And so what's been happening over the last 20 or 30 years in particular? I mean, if you look at, and I'm guessing here, but I'm guessing that Bruce and Rodney and I were all probably members of service clubs in the 80s. Which was just something you did. It was part and parcel of the process of life that you went through. Nobody joins service clubs now because none of us have got time. We're not interested. And it's not about being time poor. That's an excuse we use. So it's that people have become more selfish. This is part of that process. Things that we would have looked at as being reasonable costs of being parents in society 20 years ago, we don't think are reasonable anymore. We think somebody else should pay for it. So we want all the freedoms, but we don't necessarily want to do any of the work. And by the way, the point that Rodney raised before, or you raised before around the declining population, that in a nutshell explains why we've got wholesale immigration. And the problem with immigration is that we're all going for the same people. Canada, New Zealand, Australia, United States, UK, all looking at the same people. And there's only a certain number of them. And when we can't get those people, then we look to other parts of the world that aren't necessarily people that share the same values as we do. And that creates a whole new set of problems, and that's hitting Europe now, and it will hit this part of the world in the next 20 years. So all of this is of our own making, and we keep voting for bad choices.
All right, we've got time for one more question, and I'll need a 30-second answer from all of you. Basically, there was a new national survey that TVNZ did as part of it was a podcast on New Zealand Herald. And what they found was that when they were asked what New Zealanders like to be called, 45%, this is white New Zealanders, 45% say they want to be a New Zealander, 28% say European New Zealander, 13% say Kiwi, and just 13% say pakeha. Bruce, do you mind being called pakeha?
Well, I didn't used to, but I do now because it used to be a fairly neutral term, but it's become a pejorative term now, and somehow or other pakeha are second-class citizens. So we're wicked colonisers and in debt to the Indigenous people. So I'm not all that happy about it now. It's no longer a mild term like Kiwi used to be, like pakeha used to be like Kiwi, but it's no longer. It's a shame, really, because it was once a helpful term.
Rodney?
No, I hate it. Same reason as Bruce. I used to not care. Now I hate it. And I hate this race identity. I hate identity politics. I hate people that, their only claim to fame is they were born a Maori. It's disgraceful. And I don't like to be called European. I don't like to be called pakeha. If you want to know what I am, I'm a human being who has a New Zealand passport.
Ashley?
Because what does it even mean? I mean, I subscribe to Ancestry DNA. I've had the test done. According to Ancestry DNA, I'm 5% Maori, I'm 5% Jewish, I've got a bit of Pom, got quite a lot of Scottish, I'm Scandinavian, inexplicably there's even a little bit of Chinese in there. So, what does that term even mean? The only thing I can define myself with any degree of certainty is I'm a New Zealander or a Kiwi or whatever you want to call that. So all this other stuff is meaningless, and it's labeling. It's derived from the same stuff that drives I've forgotten the term for it that they use, but anyway, I'll come back to it. But yeah, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. I've been interested to hear Nathan's view, but
yeah, Nathan, have you ever been called a pakeha?
Well, as tangata moana myself, I don't run into it that often. But no, it's stupid. I'm obviously my mum's Scottish British heritage. My dad's full Samoan. It's not helpful. I think Bruce nailed it. It used to be kind of just a term of endearment in some instances, but now it has become racially motivated and charged, and it is a slur. So no, I can understand why people don't want to be called that, and I don't think it's helpful at all in the discourse.
Okay, we're out of time. This is our final episode for the year. We will be returning beginning of February, and it's a big year because it's election year, so it's going to be very exciting, and hopefully all our panelists will be back. I do just want to wish you a woke Christmas, and here's your wish.
Welcome to Woke Christmas, where the only thing getting roasted is outdated beliefs, and everyone's pronouns are respected at the dinner table. This year, the elves unionised, the reindeer are in therapy, and the only thing flying is empathy.
Every present now includes a trigger warning, so nobody experiences surprise without consent. Before sitting on my knee, please confirm physical, emotional, and seasonal consent.
I just want my photo, bro.
Beat our seasonal figure, it can no longer be called a snowman. We respect its non-binary identity and simply refer to it as a snow entity.
There we are. So there's your woke Christmas. Nathan, Bruce, Rodney, Ashley, fantastic job. Merry Christmas to you guys. And thank you for watching. As we say, we will be off until early February, but we'll be back with a roar because it's a big year next year. It's our 20th year as well, Family First, and election year as well. So there we are, two doozies to look forward to. So have a lovely, blessed Christmas. Have a happy new year. Get a break, and we will see you in the new year. Until then, thanks for watching.